If you had to have dinner with a political figure, living or dead, who would you like to have dinner with and why?
A political figure, living or dead? Dead, I'd do Julius Caesar, or Augustus Caesar. I'd do one of those guys. Living, I got to spend a fair amount of time with Bill Clinton 2 weeks ago. He's awesome. Some people aren't as impressive as they're supposed to be. He is. He does this really great thing. Jon Stewart actually pointed this out to me once. The first time I met President Clinton, I was backstage at The Daily Show. I was still working for John. Those dark days. I was still working for John. And I had done a piece on the show about the Democratic National Convention, and then Mr. Clinton was John's guest. And this is in 2004, I guess. We were maybe in Boston. And Clinton came backstage and sought me out. It was very flattering. He said, "I love that piece you did. How did you get those people to talk to you?" So I told him about it, and he left the room, and I kind of fainted away when he left, and he complimented my piece. And John ran backstage. He goes, "Is he gone?" He goes, "He's gone." He goes, "Let me guess. Did you meet him?" He said, "Yes, let me guess. You think you're his height?" And I went, "I did feel like I was his height." And John goes, "He's 6'2". "You're 5'11". He goes, John said, "I'm 5'7". I felt like I was his height. And that's his gift. He doesn't seem bigger than you. You seem like you're his height. I don't know, it's witchcraft. I don't know. It's that young man right there in the red shirt. Sorry, I'll get to you. I'll get to you, young man. Be careful, it's a long drop. Yes?
How did it feel to be Jon Stewart's bitch?
What was the question? How does it feel to be Jon Stewart's bitch? Ask your dad. In all seriousness, ask your dad. But in all seriousness, one thing that Jon and I actually work really hard at is we actually are really great friends, and the sense of competitiveness that we engender just because my character feels that way is nothing that I really try to encourage. He's one of my best friends, and I'm so lucky that I get him as a mentor. I was going for the all. I really do. And I love him to death. Let's go to someone. Let's get a mic. I don't know how to get the mic that far away. We'll come over to you. You get over there. I'll come back to these people. Let's go to that young man right there in the middle. You can just yell it. What are some of the inspirations for the character on the show? Okay. When I used to work for John, I was more like I started off as like a local news guy. Actually, when I worked for Craig Kilborn back in the day, when you guys were not alive. A local news guy, like doing summertime kickers, like down at the park, they've got face painting this weekend. And then when I started working for John, I started picking up people like Stone Phillips and Geraldo Rivera, because I actually I heard an interview with Geraldo Rivera once where he said, "I'd love to go jogging in Central Park. I'd love to see somebody try to get mugged. I'd love to see somebody try to mug somebody, because I'm like a battleship on patrol. I'll bring the hammer down." Because he really felt like he's like changing the world, with his own will toward justice. And then the other guy I based it on was Stone Phillips, who has a very sort of manly lacrosse player's neck, and and a calm, like a very calm and assuring way of talking by saying like, "There were no survivors." Well, head tilt says, "We looked." And then when I started doing my show, we added O'Reilly and Anderson Cooper a little bit because he's super, sharp and sexy. And that's it. Those are the influences. Okay, let's go up to the way. Are people way up top? How about that young man right there by the aisle, way up top? Yeah.
Funny conservatives.
What?
Why are there no funny conservatives?
Well, I think there are funny conservatives, but they're not funny in the same way. I used to read and watch Bill Buckley. I think Bill Buckley was really funny. I think Dennis Miller's still funny, and he's conservative. I think Drew Carey's a conservative. He's funny. He doesn't necessarily talk about politics all the time, but Drew Carey's funny. But I think that the kind of, like, this kind of work that we do isn't necessarily conducive to conservatism, because satire is about attacking status quo and opening it up and explicating a situation, going, oh, look what this is. Should it actually be that way? It's a satire is subversive of the status quo, and conservatism wishes to maintain the status quo. I'm like the ultimate subversive character, because I really look the part. I'm a white, middle-aged, white Christian male. I am the status quo, or at least it's a very changing status quo, but it was for most of America's history the status quo. When in fact, that image that you see of me as the white Christian middle-aged male is really just a shim that I hold in the hand of my mind to open your mind up to my joke. And if that sounds like I am a subversive, then I guess I am. Yes, that young man right there. Sure.
Hi. Congress typically ranges from unpopular to crazy unpopular.
Yeah, like we got down to 6% at one point.
Yeah. Your sister's running for Congress now. If and when she wins the South Carolina seat, would your show change at all to reflect that?
No. No, the deal is, if she wins, she's got to do a Better Know a District on my show. And I'm going to say things that, I'm going to buttonhole her about stuff I know about her. I'm raising money for her. She owes me. I get to make jokes at her expense. I worry about her running just because I think people can play very rough, running for office, and she's a very nice person, but she's tough and she can take care of herself. Let's go way up top again. If there's somebody, let's go. That guy right there. Yeah, I can't see anything because the lights are so bright, but right there.
How long before your show do you get into character, and how long after your show do you get out of character?
I started at Second City in Chicago, and or at least that's where I started doing comedy, at Second City in Chicago, because I started off really being a straight actor. Like I wore a lot of black, and I had a beard, and I was a poet/jerk, and I wanted to be miserable at you. I wanted to be Hamlet, not play Hamlet. But then I met these people at Second City and started doing comedy. So my comedy roots have to do with an aesthetic where you're improvising characters, and the show is essentially an improvisational exercise. It's scripted, but we write it in improvisation. The rule there, or the suggestion there, is to wear your character as lightly as a cap, so you can take them off. And so the character's not that deep. It's on my head snugly. So in the strong wind of opposition from a guest, I can keep it on, but I can take it on and off, as easily as I want. And I get into character moments before I walk out on stage. That's it. I often don't even think about my guest at all until about 4 o'clock that day. And then I have a conversation with some writers who put some more thought into it. And we think about, what would I talk to this person about? And then we go up and do the show. I've taken my character home by accident once because I was working on a script. I was in car service being driven home because I had to work on scripts. I was working on scripts and kind of improvising the character in the car ride home. And I was sort of still doing him when I walked into the house. And my wife knew immediately that I wasn't me. And she said, "Get the hell out of my house. I'll come back as the man I married." I never did that again. Let's do this fellow over here. My favorite guest? Oh, it's hard to say. I really am very grateful that anyone would put themselves across from that idiot. I really have enjoyed Neil deGrasse Tyson. We've had him on 8 or 9 times. He's a great guest because he's like a vacation for me, because he just burns at you. He just burns at you with passion of what he's talking about. He's very playful and he understands the character, and I'm interested in this subject. Andrew, my father died when I was young, and Andrew Young, Ambassador Andrew Young, the civil rights leader and former ambassador to the United Nations, for Carter, he knew my dad. And he came on my show, and interviewing him and talking to him with my father in a strike that they had settled back in 1969 was very meaningful to me. So that's the most meaningful person I've had on. But I'd say 90% of the time, I go back over to the desk and I say, I really enjoyed that. The only time I don't enjoy a guest is if they don't stand by the thing they have espoused publicly. When they get across from me, they play the reasonable man, or they say, oh, no, I wrote that, yes, but I don't mean that. And then in that case, I don't know why they're there, if not to get across an idea. Okay, we have time for just a couple more. Let's go in the middle right over here. Whoever the guy was you walked over to, young lady with the microphone, who was the guy over here? You wrote that guy, that's fine.
So, if by some act of God, like your Doritos-sponsored runs for the White House, so if the election committee ever actually let you on the ballot, how far would you take that campaign for the presidency?
I have taken my campaign for the presidency as far as I legally wish to. In 2008, my co-executive producer here, Meredith Bennett, is right here, and she's the one who makes all of our crazy dreams a reality. My friend Jimmy Franco is here. He's the one who's responsible that we're able to sell and sign books here today. So thank you, Jimmy. We tried really hard in 2008. Remember, we really tried hard to get on the South Carolina ballot the night before the Democrats kicked me off. And I know how that went down, and I've never told anybody how that went down. And I'm not going to do it today. But another time. I wrote a heartfelt letter as to why they should leave me on the ballot. And I had a plan to get out. In case I was ever really drawing votes away from anybody in South Carolina, I had a plan. Because what I wanted to do was, what we try to do with the show is, as somebody once said to me, is that we all smell bullshit, but you materialize the turd for us to see. We can see where it's coming from. I like to say that while Jon talks about the news, Jon likes to say he likes to sit in the back of the room and shoot spitballs at the news. Like a smart aleck. And I like to say, I like to turn myself into the spitball and shoot myself into the news. Or to throw myself like a pebble into the pond of the news and report on my own ripples. Because if I put myself in a story, I know I'm not real, and I also know that my intentions are self-serving. From a meta sense, they're self-serving in that I need content for my show. For my character self-serving, he's an egotist, and he wants power, and he wants the adulation, and he wants money and all that kind of stuff. So if I put myself in the story, anything that looks like me, so here I am in the story, anything on the stage that looks like me is probably bullshit too. So that's why we put ourselves in the story. That's why people say, why do you have to actually run for president? Why do you actually have to go to Naples? Why do you actually have to testify before Congress? Why do you actually have to form a super PAC? Why do you have to actually do any of that stuff? Is that because you make discoveries when you actually do it. For instance, by actually forming a super PAC, I went to the people of South Carolina, I went to the Republicans of South Carolina, and I said, I'd like to buy your primary. I would like to buy the naming rights to your primary, and they said, that sounds good to us. That'll be $400,000. And I said, I'd also like to buy some referendums on the ballot. And they said, that's $50,000 apiece. Now, no one I've spoken to, even in political reporting, even knew that that was true, that you could do that. And I wouldn't have known unless I actually said, here's $400,000. But being in the story makes me part of this secret club of what happens underneath the table. So we try to put everything underneath the table, put it on top of the table. Like, my network wasn't all that thrilled about me doing these things, because they're quasi-illegal. But they're quasi because a lot of times we don't know if they're illegal. Because no one has asked, no one said, teacher, am I breaking the law? Because no one wants to know, because it's beneficial to the status quo. And so one of the things that my network said, and they hired some nice lawyers, and I hired some nice lawyers, and it was a nice relationship, but it got tense sometimes, is they would send us letters like, please do not do X or Y, or you cannot do X or Y on air for the following reasons. And I said, I understand, send me any letters you want. I will read every letter on air. Because I think that too much of what happens, especially in our politics, is that we accept it happening under the table. And we go, well, that's just politics. And so I just wanted to do it all on top. So everything I've wanted to do, I've done. If something else might happen but I've never planned any of these games I've done. They've all been just sort of improvisational discoveries. And we followed Discovery. I did the Super PAC because, which was the second time I ran for president. I mean, I didn't intend to run for president in South Carolina the second time. That was because somebody did a poll and I was beating John Huntsman. So I guess I gotta go in. But we were just trying to do a joke about, what's his name? What was his name? Paulenti. Tim Paulenti had this terrible ad, wonderful ad, very expensive ad, like a Michael Bay kind of action movie ad. And it's hard to make him into an action hero, Tim Paulenti. And it was like him, you know, voice of God, talking about how he was going to save America or how we together can save America. And I wanted to do a parody of that ad. And at the end, we couldn't figure out how to end it. And I said, how does his end? And at the end of his, it said like libertypack.com. And I said, oh, just put colbertpack.com at the end of ours. And somebody on the staff, I think probably Meredith, said, do you want to buy that URL, colbertpack.com? I said, yeah, we might want to use it later. And then Meredith called me later and said, hey, the network wants to know if you're going to form a PAC. And I said, why do they care? And she said, well, they say if you do, that could be trouble. And I said, well, then that is what we're doing.